Yes, we are ready. We are online. Hi, everyone here again, and also hi, everyone that is there. Thanks, Sarkowski and Noemi, for having me, and also thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about my work. And then I guess let's get started. So I named this little talk Superimpositions of Reality because I like the word superimpositions. And I guess it hints kind of into the direction of what I'm doing. So originally, I come from a theater context. I studied dramaturgy, and also before that, like a century ago, philosophy and German literature. And now I work as a director and a coder, or however you want to name it. So I realized my own projects or theater pieces or performative settings that use augmented reality, sometimes inside, but most of the time outside, most of the time location-based. So I really say performative context because these projects always take place in a performative context. Like there's an audience, there's this situation other than the everyday. There's maybe a fiction, and there is a story that is being told or a cosmos that is opened up, and the audience comes to the place where this takes part, and they get devices, and then they are kind of released into this fictional space, or the space that then becomes fictional. And the pieces, they are participatory or interactive. That means that people that come to the theater piece, they are not asked to sit down and turn off their phones, but rather the opposite. They are given phones, extra devices, and they're asked to walk around. So it's kind of the opposite, but still I like to think of it as a theatrical setting. So mostly I realize these projects, but also I teach also at the master's program Spiel und Objekt at Ernst Busch, and also in Zurich and sometimes in Halle at the Burg Giebichenstein. And with the students there, I always try to explore this possibilities of storytelling given by augmented reality. And then also, of course, like depending on the background of the students, like if they come from a more design and technical background, introducing like the theatrical aspects of a situation, a role, like immersion, or then on the other hand, when they're more in the theater-heavy context, introducing augmented reality as a tool to really tell stories, or also to transform the whole world into a stage. Yeah. So here now, I think, so I prepared to focus on some core aspects, or maybe like reasons I work with AR in the artistic practice, but also in the thinking process about reality and our place in it, like who we are and how we interact, and what changes if we interact. And I'm gonna do that with some examples of my projects, and then in the end I'm gonna talk just a little bit about my recent research project that I have been doing in the last half year as a fellow of the Academy of Theatre and Digitality in Dortmund, because it kind of brings everything together, and it's also not finished yet, so it's more like an outlook. Yeah, so I wanted to start with this quote by William Gibson: "We see in order to move, and we move in order to see," because I think it really changes how we see things when we move around, like also move around in a metaphorical way. So as I mentioned, I work with AR in public spaces like towns or forests, places that are not per se like fictional spaces, but then I like to transform them into something maybe more fictional by what the audience is able to experience through the phone. So first of all, as you all know and have, of course, also experienced already, AR is this tool to create an overlay over reality. And of course, we can use AR to provide like additional information, or to see what the newest sneakers in 3D would look like. But I really like to use it as a tool to actually show another reality, like an alternative reality, or this augmentation of reality on top of our everyday. So here in this picture, you can see one of these overlays, and it's from a theater project called Hier und Dort, which means here and there, and that was about a scientist that invented this machine to be at the same place, or to experience different things at the same moment. And as an audience member, as the audience, you were actually invited to experience these multiple realities at the same time too. So what happens is that the audience came to the starting point and they were given phones, and then they were walking around in this little town, Solothurn, where I grew up. And through the phone, like actually through, I don't have my phone here now. So like through a window into another world, they could see this 3D world that we made in Unity. And what's important about this is that the structure of this 3D world was the same structure as the physical structure of Solothurn, of this town. So we kind of placed this 3D world on top of the physical town. So I can show you a screen recording of what the 3D world looked like. So this looks like a video game. You can move around in space and you can interact with the things you see, the things you find in the world, and you can encounter other people or like representations of people, and you can hear things, you see these markers. You always come back to this hub thingy. Here's like one of the representations. And so you always can choose on your own where to go next. So you always come to this hub and then you choose one of these markers that then guide you into another valley or alley. Yeah, so this is like this video game where you can just move around freely. And what's the AR part about this is that you don't play that in your computer at home, but people actually have to be physically there in this town. And in order to move their avatar in this virtual world, they have to move themselves, or the tablet or the phone, but they have to move themselves, and then the avatar is following them. So this is what I meant with the location-based reality overlay. Yeah, let's go on. Yes?
Can I just ask to the technical?
Sure.
Is that just a giant interactive AR model or something?
Sorry, can you ask again?
Oh, I just wanted to understand the specifics of the game that you created here. Like, if it's sort of in theory or practice, exactly like the smaller Unity projects that we created last time, just large scale and then exported just similarly and like then.
So yeah, it is in Unity, made in Unity, is like a Unity project, but a bit bigger with more interactions. And we're gonna actually do that tomorrow with this location-based part. There's this really cool website. It's called OpenStreetMaps. It's not Google Street Map, but OpenStreetMaps. And there you can export an area of a map. And we then just exported the area of Solothurn, of this town, and then you just have cubes. So you have like 3D model of this town. But here then... OpenStreetMaps produces a format of OSM, that's OpenStreetMap, so their own format. But there's people in the internet that wrote this cool program where you can just really, by dragging and dropping, and I'm going to show you, transform it into an OBJ. So this then is a 3D object that has a mesh or different meshes, and is actually quite detailed. And we just use that for the Hyun dot. We just use this as the structure, and then on like kind of took that as the layout, and then put these stones there, and just did this video thingy. Graphics appearance, but the dimensions were given by this model coming from OpenStreetMaps.
Super cool. Super cool.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So I think we do the microphone thing. Yeah. So let's go on. So because another aspect I really like about working with AR is the fact that I can situate a thought or a story in the real surroundings. And then through that, maybe emphasize a thought, or maybe also contradict a concept. But there's always like this additional layer of meaning by placing something artificial into the everyday. And also, of course, like me coming from theater, I like thinking about situations and roles and who is acting and who is who, also depending on what situations the participants are in. So it's not only the thoughts that are being situated, but also the people that are being staged to kind of make this visible. And then this gets really visible through absurd situations, maybe like this, where 3 people are standing in the middle of the forest, and kind of what it looks like are filming each other from a weird perspective, but actually they are again looking into another dimension, I want to say, like into another reality through their tablets. And what they see, I can show you. So when they look into their tablet, they see this. So this was another project or a research project, and they see these objects, and they can literally walk into this bubble. And then when they're inside the bubble, they are in space, or they on their tablet, it looks like they are in space, and they can, because they are in the bubble, look around in 360 degrees with their tablet, and fly by this planet. And then when they have seen enough, they can step out of it again. So in this residency I did in the Brandenburger Forest, I did think a lot about like relativity of time and space, and I thought it could be interesting not just to talk about it or write about this relativity, but also make the players or the audience experience this relativity, like being at one place in one situation and then being in another place, kind of in another situation in the next moment. So yeah, this is the situating. This also not only a fiction, but also concepts. And then another thing we're also going to talk about today, or experience, is this fragmentary storytelling. So basically AR, because it's not this time-based medium like film where you start in the beginning and you end in the end, the whole town or the forest can become a stage. And then I can, of course, put snippets of content anywhere I want to, like the narrative scattered in place for the audience to be discovered or to discover. So then the audience can walk around in their own pace, and they can discover the snippets in their own order. And then depending on where they are, experience fragments of the story, and then also can put them together themselves. And this picture here is from a piece called Future is Now, which was actually the first kind of AR walk we did in Basel. We then called it hyperdisciplinary walk because it was also with video and audio and film. But it was this AR walk through Basel. And there we told a story about an algorithm that wanted to be as humanly as possible. And therefore was like mimicking one of the protagonists and also like influencing her and changing her. And then, of course, that had consequences for both of them, as for the human and for the algorithm. And the audience member was kind of supporting the algorithm by taking decisions what should happen with the protagonist, or taking decisions with the algorithm. So you were there by yourself on a route, like through Basel, and you could decide how the story should develop. And then after you decided, at each step, you would be provided, or you could find snippets of video where the consequences of your decision were being played out. And that's what we did, is that we filmed the sequences of the protagonists at the same place where you would then be standing and discover the video. So this on this picture on the right, you can see it quite well. So in the background, you just see like this normal street. It's just a picture of this government building. And then on the phone on the left side, there's the live camera function with some post-processing effects, but there's still just this everyday, the live stream. But then this quad with the brighter blue where you can see these two people, this is actually the augmentation. So this is just the 2D video plane, where it shows the film we did earlier at the same location, the people were standing, and then because of this kind of simultaneity, it kind of told the story that you could look into the future, or a possible future. Yes, so also another aspect that kind of was or always here or is always important is the role of the spectator, or the possibility of changing the role of the spectator. So basically it's an activation, what's also always a central point of the projects, because if you don't walk around, you don't experience anything. So I guess with the fragmentary storytelling and with this activation of the audience, what I really like here is this analogy to like everyday life, where we are, in my opinion, always constructing our reality, and everyone is always trying to rationalize it as we go along and trying to understand. So it's not something that is given to us and we're passively consuming it, but we actually have to do work in order to understand or to move, like physically and yeah, metaphorically or mentally. And then another aspect I wanted to point out is this possibility of making this multiperspectivity visible. So before I was talking about situations and like different roles we play, and what I really like the audience to experience is the fact that who they are or what role they play or how they understand what they see depends on their knowledge or on their perspective and on other things. But it's never just one situation, it's always this multi-layered thing. And here to explain what happens in the picture here, so here we see the player on the left is again looking into this fictional world through the phone, like through a window. And you can barely see it, maybe also it's like way too far away, but she's actually at the moment debating with the High Court of Alpacas whether they should erase the humans on Earth or not. So that was just part of the play, and this is her situation at the moment. So this is her reality at the moment. But at the same time, what also is happening here is that two people have just got married at the background. And to them, or maybe also to people that are really on the outside, it looks like Louisa, the player here, is filming them. Because that's also what happens a lot when we walk around with phones like this, that people say, stop filming me, this is against the German law, that's what happened in Dortmund. But then actually we can show them, no, it's not, it's actually a window to another, dimension, another world. Yeah, so I guess my point is here that the influence of knowledge and perspectives on understanding a situation or a concept. And then, so the last thing, is this possibility through augmented reality being able to comment and directly engage with the cityscape or with the landscape. So through this writing on the right, or through like placing these weird, strange moving objects, I can transform this meadow into something else. So this is like a random meadow in the forest, but now it can become a stage of my narrative. And again, of course, for me as a theater person, this is quite interesting when all of a sudden everything can literally become a stage. And also through that commenting and pointing to real world events, I can also reinterpret of what is there. So there's this other example of an artistic and educational project I did with the artist Franziska Baumgartner at Kunsthalle Basel, where we scanned all the participants. There was like 6 or 7 participants, made 3D scans of them, and then I animated them so their virtual body could actually walk around or fly around or swim around in the physical space, in this exhibition space. So they would then walk or swim around and tell their own story and their own interpretation of what was exhibited there. And it was the art in the exhibition was no longer just speaking for itself, but it was partly being reinterpreted or recontextualized or also maybe fictionalized by the participants. So I guess I really also understand AR as a mean of being able to debate or to pick like who is able to speak and who is listened to and what stories are told. So maybe just to give you also an impression of what that looked like in moving. So these are the 3D models. They look distorted because that was just my skills at the moment, and it was also part of the thing. And so there were scans of these participants, and they, after scanning a marker and then turning around, so this is what I told you before with the feature point recognition, they would stay on a defined route through these spaces, through this space. And then here this woman wanted to recite, so she was reciting a poem she wrote herself, and she wanted to be, as a body, more abstract, so we decided to just make her like completely blue. And then also, I think here, there's this lady that was swimming, so she was swimming around this whole space and was transforming, like by what stories she was telling, this space, this room, into an aquarium. And here this guy, because the art was all about artificial nature, he wanted to be like this glossy green. And of course, like the real people on the right, you could see, they could not see the augmentation, but from my perspective, it looked like they were kind of looking at the art together. Yeah, so, and he just wanted to be a very good hip hop dancer. Yeah. Let's go on. Yeah, so maybe to wrap it up, I'll show you quickly what I have been working on in the past 5 months as the fellow of the Academy of Theatre and Digitality. So I was there for 5 months expanding like my knowledge about AR and coding and Unity, and then also networking things. And so the project, Die andere Stadt, ended up being basically this multiplayer, location-based AR experience, like the other things you've seen before, but now with the expansion of also being able to join the virtual or this augmented space from a desktop computer anywhere. So there's 2 groups of people. One group is outside at the location, as we know it already. They have, through their phone, access to this fictional space through the tablet. But then there's also this other group, or this other person for the prototype, that is sitting inside at the computer and has, through the computer, also access to this space. And then people can meet, or their representations can meet, and they can communicate. And so I show you this is long, so I'm just going to click through it. This is the documentation. And let me see. So this view is what you had on the tablet, and this green thing is another person. So you can see her, Rachel, here. She is being represented by this green thing. So she walks around, and I can see the green thing walking around. And so the goal was to find these markers and interact with them, or basically tap on them, and then you could hear some thoughts and things. And of course, also when I tapped on the marker, the world I saw on the tablet also changed. So before you saw it was just like a plain green thing, and then while I'm anchoring the content, it gets this black and white thing. And then what's the addition to what you've also seen before is that this other group is Philip, who is inside of the academy, and he's walking in this world that looks different, but is again, from the layout, from the structure, the same as this way around the physical theater. So he can also see markers and listen to things, and here we are again, and see this writing. But then when he arrives on the Theaterplatz, like the space in front of the theater, he gets the possibility to write. So here, this little input field, he can type, and then whatever he typed is as a 3D object in this space. So he can move around. So it's like this spatial chat. And then he sees us coming. Here, these 2 little things in the background. He sees how we are coming to the actual physical space. So he's inside on the Theaterplatz, but just in virtual, and we are also on the Theaterplatz, but in physical, and he is the blue, it's very quick. And so we can write with each other, because of course also we can write, and then the writings are displaced in the space, and he has to move around to be able to read it. And also this is the other view again, whatever he writes is depicted here as a 3D object on this space. in this space. Yeah, so at the moment this is just like a prototype, like the technical setup, but the idea is to find this narrative transformation of the novel The City and the City by China Miéville. I don't know if you know it, because no one ever knows. You know him? No, okay. So he writes these science fiction stories and calls himself not science fiction. So what's really interesting in this City and the City is that he puts up this cityscape of two cities that are not next to each other, not like normally we have two cities that are next to each other, but they're actually occupying the same space. And the people from one city are not allowed to see or interact with the other citizens, even though they may be like just on the other street. So they have learned to unsee each other, and there's just like a novel about this, and I think this really fits kind of what I want to explore more with the AR. So the idea is to transform this into like a theatrical experience where you can experience this being in the same space but still be in different realities. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, so I really see AR as, for me, as a tool that helps me that abstract or like more theoretical concepts don't have to stay that abstract thing anymore. Like asking all these questions, or maybe evoking all these questions about the nature of reality, of the construction of understanding, like about us in it. So through actually being able to offer the setting, like in a real forest or a physical town, I always hope that the ways of seeing can be expanded, kind of like a practice of re-seeing things or reimagining objects or realities, and then maybe reliving everyday situations from a different perspective, or things that we thought we already know, and then maybe we can discover something new in them. Yeah, so that's the idea behind it. Yeah, and that's it. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you. And of course, like if you have questions now, ask them with the microphone. But also if you have other questions, we can talk about it later. Key. It's just for the stream.
Okay. This project which you did with the Kunsthalle Basel was because you briefly mentioned it was somewhat educational project. Could you also talk more about the educational aspect of this project?
So the idea was, so it was part of the educational department of Kunsthalle. And the idea was that, as I mentioned also, because in these bigger exhibitions, there's always the artist that can speak, and then maybe the curator that has like this sheet Saalplan and writes something about it. But the visitors are there to look at the things. And then the idea was to place their opinions or their stories and their perspectives in the same space, like at the, like to, not to contradict, but just to augment the exhibition. And how we worked is that they, so I scanned them, because this is just like they have to be there in T-pose, and then I did that with the Kinect, so we had like 3D objects of them. But then they actually, the whole educational process was also with Franziska Baumgartner, that they were thinking about what could this room or this space be for them. So they invented like this story, or we're also of course looking at the art, so it was also about making the art visible to them or understandable. And then they wrote this text about what the room can be, and then they chose like how they want to move, how the virtual character wants to move in the space, and I just basically did that for them in Unity. So, and then of course we had this opening where they could show everyone, their ideas in the Kunsthalle Basel space. Sure.
There's also a question from the chat.
no chat. Okay, people are drinking coffee. That's good. Yeah, so thanks. That's good then.